everybody, I'm Liz, and I'm sorry to say I am not doing a book review today. I have been reading Alexander Hamilton, his biography by Ron Chernow, and it's a very thick book, so it's been taking me a lot longer to read it, and so I actually haven't finished a book this week. So instead I'm going to occupy my video with the Try a Chapter tag. I did one previously 2 weeks ago, and it's really helping me narrow down my TBR shelf and removing books that I'm just not interested in because they've been on my shelf for so long and all of my interests have changed since then. I'm going to leave all of the information and the original video as well as my first Try a Chapter tag video down in the description below so you can check it out if you would like to. But the premise of the Try a Chapter tag is to read the first chapter of a couple of books, including the prologue, just to see if you actually want to read it. So I've picked 5 books to look into and read the first chapter just to see if I want to keep it on my TBR shelf or remove it because my interests have waned since I have bought these books quite a few years ago. The first book I tried out was Recovering Charles by Jason F. Wright. This book follows a man called Luke who is going back to the post-Hurricane Katrina mayhem and chaos in New Orleans to go and look for his father. This book is supposedly about finding yourself, becoming your true person, and also finding true love. So I was really excited to see if I really liked the writing style and if the first chapter really entertained me. And I have to say that I actually ended up surpassing the first chapter because I was already interested in the story. The prologue and the first chapter talk about how his mother died when he was in the 5th grade and just how he and his father went past it and mourned and went about the funeral arrangements. And then it jumps to the end of August in 2005, right after Hurricane Katrina hits, and it hosts Luke binge watching every single news station available to look and see all of the mayhem and the chaos, and he prays for the survivors of the hurricane that they will find their lost family or that they will make it through the devastation and the starvation. So I was very interested in this story and I'm definitely keeping it on my shelf. The next book I tried was Within the Dark Hills by CNN Bessie. This book is a historical fiction. I'm not exactly sure on the era, except I know that it's after 1815, and it follows 2 main characters called Annie Morgan and Evan Powell. And in the first chapter we have Annie Morgan, who is banging on the door of a church in the middle of a torrential rainstorm. She is battered, bruised, and drenched, and she is seeking refuge because she is fleeing her master as she is a maid in a manor, and her master is not a great guy. So she's seeking help from the Reverend in hopes that he will help her be able to stay away from her master and find a new life. And Evan Powell is a coal miner who the Reverend thinks will help Annie in her plight. Both stories sound equally bleak in the back synopsis, so I'm really excited to actually continue reading because this is another book where I wanted to continue right after the first chapter. I wanted to see what happens next, especially because at the end of chapter 1, the alarm of the coal mine goes off, sounding off that there's a gas leak and a possible explosion. So I was very excited and I absolutely love the writing style, and I'm not huge in historical fiction, so I'm really hoping that I actually really like this book because it's another one that's going to stay on my shelf. Next, I tried the Leto Bundle by Marina Warner, and this book seems like a historical fiction, also possibly a fantasy, where it follows a museum curator who just received a shipment from an ancient Greece tomb that has a mummy, and she's really excited to see what types of stories and secrets that this mummy holds. It also follows the Titan Leto, who gives birth to twins, a boy and a girl, and it follows her throughout the centuries as she strives to look for her lost son. because in the war-torn era that she gives birth to these twins, she ends up being separated from him, but she's able to save her daughter. So it follows her as she uses different guises to try to locate her son, and that is the basic synopsis of the back of the book. So the prologue follows the main curator receiving the shipment and all of the ethical and political turmoil that is starting at the beginning of this book with them receiving this shipment. And then the first chapter follows Leto right immediately after the birth of her twins. I'll say that I didn't quite understand the writing style. I feel like Marina Warner just uses some very eloquent, almost larger or made up words as she is going about the story and she's describing things. So I'm not exactly sure I like her writing style, and I'm not sure how I feel about Leto's story just based on chapter 1. I was gonna continue on to see if I got a different feel for the story after chapter 1 and read chapter 2, but then it switches back to the curator. So I'm not sure how I feel about this book, and I think I might be shipping it off of my shelves. The next book I tried is Perfect Nightmare by John Saul. This is a book that follows a mother named Kara whose daughter goes missing, and she believes that her daughter's been kidnapped by some stranger who utilized their open house as they are selling their home to move into the city. However, the police think she just ran off being an angsty teenager because she didn't want to move cities during her senior year of high school. The prologue actually sticks you right in the mind of a stalker, and he is watching this young girl sleeping. It's really creepy, and he definitely has this mindset where this girl loves him even though she's only sleeping, and he feels like that because she isn't waking up and that she's smiling in his sleep, she actually wants him there. So it was a very creepy start to a story, and the first chapter puts you in the mind of the mother Kara as she has decided to move into the city to be closer to her husband because she feels like her and her husband are drifting apart and she doesn't want their marriage to end. And so she's telling her really good friend that she's moving, and then it switches points of view to her daughter, Lindsay, who is really upset about the move. She's doing tryouts to be a part of the varsity cheerleading squad in her senior year, but because she is so flustered and angry with her parents about the move, she actually botches her tryouts and ends up spraining her wrist. So her day is awful and terrible, and it's just getting worse. And so as you can tell, I was very interested just by reading the prologue and the first chapter alone. The synopsis really intrigued me when I picked this book up about a year ago, and I still really want to read it, and that hasn't changed just by reading the first chapter, so this is definitely going to stay on my shelf. The last book I have is part of my Dean Koontz collection. It's Breathless. It's supposed to be a suspense mystery novel. However, I'm not exactly certain. Even just reading the back synopsis kind of had me a little confused. And the first chapter just follows a man trekking through the wilderness with his dog. And so I decided to try reading the second chapter to see if it makes any more sense. And the second chapter follows another person, which is a woman. She's a veterinarian, and she's actually a part of this puppy mill bust, and she's rescuing these litters of golden retrievers, and they're emaciated and lice-ridden. They're really sad conditions, and so she takes them to the veterinary clinic to clean them up and to start to reintegrate them and train them to become more sociable dogs. And basically, when she leaves to eat food, the dogs act strange, and then they act like they've never undergone neglect or abuse. And so there's a very strange situation happening there, and I'm really not sure how I feel about this book. I actually went onto Goodreads to kind of scope out some reviews because I was really uncertain about how I'd feel about this book. I feel like Dean Koontz' writing is good, but he's very descriptive, almost too descriptive in his writing. And also reading some of those reviews, I find that he has just multiple points of views in the book, and you feel like they're gonna converge at the end, and then they never really fully do, and so you feel like each person's story isn't quite wrapped up by the end of the book, and a lot of people just really didn't enjoy the story. So I'm really on the fence with this one, and I'm thinking I might also be shipping this off my shelf. So I feel like these try chapter tags are very helpful and very resourceful to help you narrow down your TBR shelf and really get a feel for a writer's writing style and how they feel they're going to drive the plot. And it's really helping me because I feel like I'm going to be shipping 2 books off of my shelf, and it really rekindled my interest in 3 other books. So I'm definitely really excited to continue this try a chapter tag, and I'm sure you'll see more in the future as I reacquaint myself with my unread books on my bookshelf. If you have read any of the books I have mentioned, please let me know in the comments down below so that I can get a feel for your thoughts on the story as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye!